And I'm having the same issue again where I'm pretty sure,
Oopsies.
no, don't worry about it. It's because there's no rug under the back half. So it slides.
I wish there was no rug on my back half.
Oh, is that how we're starting this one off?
Are we recording?
We're recording.
No.
Oh,
No.
oh, how much of that do I leave in?
Bro, how did you catch me in consecutive weeks saying that's the most crass thing? Oh man, people are gonna think I'm a dirty man now. First of all, I'm talking about the angle of the dangle, and now I'm talking about the carpet. Oh no. I hope to God we edit that one out, but we'll see.
Nope. I think we need something good to start this off with, so that's probably gonna have to stay.
Please just understand this is not who I am normally.
I don't even know how do we do a podcast.
After that,
How do we? I don't know how to do it in general, but especially after that.
I'm torn because I feel like we should talk about and just be organic and talk about what we've both been struggling with, but at the same time we brought a lot of that up last week. So like I don't want to rehash things, but we're kind of coming at it from a different perspective than we did last week.
Oh yeah,
Because we talked about how it was rough, but we didn't talk about it being growing pains and what the other side of those growing pains look like. You know what I'm saying?
well yeah, and I guess I'm kind of excited actually to see you, because I feel like right now I've been in a really tough set of days, and it's going to be good to see if now I can pick it up and really make something of this time that's been difficult for me. You know, this is the time that we've been saying that we're waiting for, is the bad days when there's an opportunity to see if there's measurable growth. So I'm kind of excited to see next week how I'm going to be feeling compared to this week, because I can say that, like, you know, since the last time I saw you, since the last podcast, I don't think I've been to the gym.
Ooh.
I haven't been eating right at all. I've had a lot of really long days out in the sun. I haven't been hydrating right. I've been on and off a lot of my health supplements. There's been a lot of stress, personal life stress, and just everything. I think it's been the toughest week I've had in a long time, and so it's going to be really good to see now. Can I take that and make it into something positive? And I want to measure that next week. I want to get on the podcast next week and see how it compares to. Because right now, on a scale of 1 to 100, I would say I'm at like a 30.
Right.
So I'm really excited to see if next week, I want to see where I'm at. I want to see did I improve this? Did I stay the same? Or did it go, God help me, did it go backwards?
So, and I used a different analogy when we were talking off camera earlier, but another one I would use is kind of like the shedding of skin. I feel like anytime when you go through an extended period of time where things seem rough or things seem tough, and you may or may not be running into the same brick wall over and over again, or, you know, maybe it's a lesson life's trying to teach you repeatedly, or maybe it's just a tough set of days or whatever. But I feel like those circumstances a lot of times come down to growing pains. And I feel like a lot of those circumstances on the other side of that, on the other side of you learning and growing from those set of circumstances, I feel like it's prep work. I feel like it's prepping you to use as a game analogy, to level up. I think it's prepping you for your next phase, your next stage, your next journey, your next path. Because I don't feel like you're just in the doldrums for no reason. I don't feel like you're just going through it for no reason. I think everything is prep work. I think there's a plan and a purpose for everything. And in growth, you have to shed old skin. And it's never comfortable, and it's never fun, and it's never easy. But once you shed skin and once you level up, I always notice how it's refreshing. It's like you can almost mark the feeling of a new beginning. You're like, okay, I'm out of that cycle. I'm into the next. You step forward, you press forward, and you're into the next stage, the next level, your new skin, whatever, however you want to use the analogy. But you can feel a marked difference in your attitude, your demeanor, the way you feel. and the way you process and recognize things.
I agree with that completely. All the while that this has been a really tough week, the entire time, even in the moments where I feel like it's almost broken me or gotten me to a point where I've, not been able to get through it with any sort of positivity. All the while I have been kind of saying that I just need to embrace it, and I've been telling my girlfriend that we just need to embrace anything difficult and all of these changes that are coming, because really if things weren't getting difficult, then things would just stay the same. And as nice and as comfortable as that is, and as much as I do like my life, I don't want it to stay the same, you know? And I don't think, it's okay to be content with your life. That's totally fine. But a lot of times we need growth to have a reason to keep existing.
As somebody who's experienced it firsthand, because I've done it to myself and I've shot myself in the foot in that way, monotony, complacency, and fear are all dream killers. They're passion killers. They're growth inhibitors. Those three things cannot exist where you hope to grow, prevail, and succeed.
I guess that's why, as bad as it's been, here's what I'll say. I know that I've grown at least a little bit from who I used to be, because the things that have happened to me in this last week would have made it so there would have been several days now in a row where I would have completely quit and rescheduled, just, I don't think in the past I had the skills to handle everything that's been happening. And it's nothing that serious, but life just throws a lot of things at you sometimes. And yeah. And so it's just been really stressful, but I know that I've grown from who I used to be, because at least now I have the awareness that I need to be grateful, even though things are really difficult. And even though there's been some days where I'm just questioning, you almost look up and you're just like, why?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Why does it have to be like that? And why does it have to happen like three things at a time, and then you step outside and another thing happens?
So, two things I'd like to bring up in regards to that. One, I want to give credence to what you said, because younger Matt would not have been able to exist in current Matt's last week. You would have had no energy or capacity to do anything, and you would have gotten in this cycle where you just would have perpetually ran yourself into the ground.
You just said exactly what I've been fighting through too. Is that whole old thing where I would give up and then be completely mad that I'm not doing anything, and then you just sit there and dwell on that. Yep.
And the second thing is, because you mentioned you kind of look up and you go, why? Why does it have to be like this? Why is it this way? Well, kind of like there's a book I'm reading right now, and I feel like there are plenty of times where you can look up and ask questions and go, why? And, and have that conversation with the universe, your higher power. For me, it's God. But you can have that conversation, and I think having that open dialogue is a healthy form of spirituality. Because a lot of times once you speak something out loud, it loses its power. Like if you have community and you talk to somebody and you get it out, it's no longer threatening.
Sure.
You're no longer threatening you, because it's just sitting inside.
That's why you can't bottle things up.
Exactly. But at the same time, I think a lot of questions, when you're feeling like, why does it have to be this way, can also be directed inward. Because I feel like there's a lot of things a lot of lies, a lot of deception, a lot of self-deprecation and things of that nature, or even just like the way we were raised and things we believe about ourselves or things we believe about our own reality that we have let take root inside of us, that are all lies, but ways we've neurologically patterned our lives to be, because we've bought into everything that's been, that we've either fed ourselves or have been fed to us. And I feel like there's a lot of work to be done in uprooting the negative, uprooting the lies, uprooting the negative behavioral traits and patterns, rewiring and rerouting and replanting new branches, new roots and new seeds, and growing the person you want to be.
Right. I like that you say it like that, because I kind of, in my life, I really have this way of visualizing everything, and like I'll kind of try to put it into an image, and I do see it like with that, it's like a root system. All of this, everything that we think, everything that we've built up in our minds, the positive, the negative, how we react to anything, just our patterns. I look at it like there's these really thick, deep roots running through your brain, and maybe some thin ones, different sizes. And, some of those really thick ones are super negative patterns that
Yeah.
we have. And so you can't just go in there, if you're doing yard work, you can't just necessarily go in there every time and just shovel right through a root. You got to break out the power saw, and that takes some serious work. Sometimes you got to put some back into it.
Yeah.
You got to do some planning. You got to dig around a little bit.
One swing of the axe ain't going to cut the mustard. Sometimes you got to go back to the well a couple of times and keep swinging.
Yes. And then the ones, maybe some of the more positive patterns are really thin or almost non-existent roots, and those don't just build overnight. It takes a lot of consistency and a lot of drive.
Well, I think that's kind of like, in and of itself, a silly little microcosm for life and the way people react to most things. Because, I mean, it's interesting that you say like that the thin roots are usually like the positive traits or the positive qualities that you're not building on.
It can lean that way.
And then the negative are the thick, big roots that you're tripping over, that you're trying to get rid of. But like, for example, I mean, how many times in your life have you had, you've done a million little things, right? You've done good. You've been a good person, but you make a misstep, and the one negative thing you do is now your reputation. Is now what you're known for. It's all anybody can remember is the one time you messed up, and you're like, what about all the good?
Yeah. And we do it to ourselves. We amplify it in our own heads.
Yeah. So it's interesting that the negatives always seem to be bigger or have a stronger hold than the positives. And I don't know why our brains are wired that way. I don't know why it is that way, but it just seems to be like a common thing where it's so much easier to buy into somebody telling you you're a piece of garbage than somebody, man, you're a great person. It's so much harder to take a compliment. Like, I am all about words of affirmation, and I'm like, that's one of my biggest love languages is like, and that's how I give and receive love a lot is words of affirmation. But it's so much easier for me to be like, yeah, you're right. If somebody's just dogging me, than if somebody's like, Mike, you're like a legit good dude, and I appreciate you, and thank you, and this, that, and the other. Like I almost don't know how to react.
I think that's maybe just a form. It probably goes into something biological or, it's like a form of protection where you have to notice the things that are going to affect you. But I think just in this modern world, we're so caught up in every little, everybody looks perfect online. So you have to present yourself in this perfect way. Even with this podcast, I get worried. I'm like, if I start to compare it to other high level podcasts, I'm like, we're kind of, but we are amateur and there's nothing to, I think that it's really nothing to worry about. I think that you have to go through that anyways.
No,
So
I agree. And comparison is a joy killer.
absolutely.
If your
If
aim
anything,
is to
compare
live
it to your old self.
Yeah.
But
it's, so like, you could be living your quote unquote best life. You could be you could be grateful. Look at these blessings I have. I'm so grateful for this moment. I'm so grateful for the people around me, this, that, and the other. And the second you turn your attention from what you're grateful for and the good things, and you look over here and you start comparing to what somebody else has and what somebody else is doing, you lose sight of everything you were just grateful for. You lose sight of everything that was bringing you joy.
yeah.
And you also don't know what that other person's dealing with. So like, okay, their curated, manicured version of themselves on social media is what you're jealous of when that's not real life.
Yeah, it never is.
So you're taking yourself out of your blessings. You're taking yourself out of your joy. You're taking yourself out of your gratefulness. You're taking yourself out of what you're trying to root yourself in. You're taking yourself out of the potted plant, and then you're wilting because you're not watering, you're not planting yourself, and you're just like striving to have something that's not even real.
This is why I had to do a podcast with you. This is, and I love it
And that's
because
perspective. Like that, like literally perspective.
it's entirely perspective.